And so I'm excited to introduce to you my friend, Laura Howe, with Hope Made Strong, to open our day today. Come on.
Oh, goodness. Hello, everyone. It is such an honor. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm very nervous to stand on a stage. Any other social workers who like to do like one-on-one and sit in a room with families? And this is so, like, my hands and feet are sweating like crazy. If anyone knows me well, I'm usually behind a computer screen. And so this is super outside the box, but man, does it ever get me excited. I'm actually quite emotional at the moment because of how exciting. Maybe stress, maybe perimenopause, maybe excitement. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'm going with it. This is pretty exciting. Yes, I'm from Canada, and it was a few years ago. I have a whole story of burnout and compassion fatigue, which we're going to talk about later on in the day. But God just birthed this idea of like, what if the church can learn from the community and the community can learn from the church, or the church be the church and the community be the community? How transformative for our neighborhoods would that be? So my background is a clinical mental health social worker. I worked in a community mental health and addictions clinic for 15 to 20 years because my roles changed and there was babies born in that time and all those things. And it was such an honor to do just what Pastor Trent said. And I'm like, does anyone ever call you PT? Can I call you PT? This would be fantastic. So as a crisis responder, as a walk-in counselor, as addictions counselor, and I have a story of burnout around that, and God just put it on my heart. Okay, the church, there's such a gap, there's such a need, and wondering of how can the church show up and support people in a way that is authentic, that is a way that is within the capacity of the church and not like outside its boundaries or ethical responsibilities and all of these things. And I was like, God, I have never been to seminary. I don't know, like, I love Jesus. I grew up in the church. I did what I call homeschool Bible school for a year in between like high school and university. My church put on a thing. Yeah, I don't know what to call it. No one has this at their church. It was like an internship. I call it homeschool Bible school. Anyway, so that's the extent of my Bible training. And I was like, God, and he's like, you know what? Just show up. Be willing. I was like, okay, Lord, I'm at the end of my capacity. I am just whatever you want me to do. So I had the honor and privilege of leading Hope Made Strong, which, as Pastor Trent said, it comes alongside churches and helps them develop care ministries that are sustainable, that are strategic, that are scalable, that don't burn out your team. And then COVID happened. And I just, a mentor of mine was like, you know, if you host a church mental health, like do an event. All of these speakers are sitting at home. You know, as a clinician, this is like the beginning of chaos around mental health. People need training. And so I just went on websites. People answer their info at least at that time they did when they were sitting at home doing nothing, and put together a online event that has now, on average, the last 3 years, reached 10,000 people across 125 countries. This October is going to be our 7th event, and it's just really exciting and very cool where God has put this. But I live in a small town community where there are more cows than people. I am just a normal person with kids and a dog and someone who hates to cook and has way too much laundry, just like everyone else. And it's just really cool where God is leading this. But I was like, it can't just live online. It can't just be this fun, flashy, big thing. Like this, God, my heart is for community. It's for neighborhoods. It's for local churches. And so this is the idea that came up that was like, okay, what if local churches hosted the event in their home communities, brought together pastors and clinicians and social services under this? This is what I dreamed of. So like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and it's just such an honor to be here. This is my first one that I've ever been to in person, so this is such a cool thing. We've hosted local events in Australia, in Hong Kong, in New York State, in Toronto, and here in Pennsylvania. So I hope that someday we're going to look back and be like, remember when this was just a small thing, and now it's transforming the world. So that's the context of all of this. So if I'm a bit emotional today, now you know why. This is a long-lived dream. Okay, let's get to our content. Today we are going to be talking a lot about the intersection of community and the church. And my friend Dave Eckert is here, and I'm sure he'll be introduced later. He is an expert in community. So we're going to leave that amazing content to him, but we're going to kind of work and play off of each other. We're going to start off with looking at what the role of the church is in supporting mental health. And as I said, I am not a theologian. I am a passionate congregant in a local church myself who loves Jesus. I'm a clinician at heart, and so I feel like I have a foot in both camps. And when I think, and what we do at Hope Made Strong is help churches think about how they can show up in an authentic way, not outside their boundaries or outside their guidelines or what they do best, but how can they support people and individuals who are struggling with mental health challenges. This is me, my website, hopemadestrong.org. I have a thing over here. Come see me if you want to talk about that. I'm not great at self-promotion. Next. Okay. Moving on. So when we think of how churches support individuals, we think of things like this, where we provide pastoral care and maybe some friendship and meals, and we do home visits, and we have support groups, or maybe we deliver food if they're struggling, but it can be so much more. It can be so much more. Those things are invaluable to people. Anyone receive a meal or a support or a pastoral care moment right at the time that you needed it, right? Absolutely. Those things impact us on a very real level. But when we think about how we can support individuals with mental health, it just, the tension that is like, what is our role? Like, what are the boundaries, or what can we do? Because we so often jump from, oh, you're struggling? Oh, you need to see a counselor. I'm a clinician. I believe in counseling. I believe in diagnostics. I believe in medication and treatment plans. Absolutely, those things are necessary at times, but people also need friends, right? They also need companions to walk alongside them. So how can the church show up? I wanted to bring your attention to a study. If you have not heard of this study yet, it's the Global Human Flourishing Study out of Harvard, Baylor. I think there's a couple other universities around the world that are partnering in this. And it's just a really interesting study. I'm sure there's going to be a Netflix documentary about this in like 5 years. So when it comes out, you'll be like, I knew about that 5 years ago when it first came out. So the Global Human Flourishing Study is the largest qualitative study in the world on why people flourish. And it is fascinating. They are tracking people over many, many years, studying what makes up flourishing. How do people flourish? And this next slide is going to be frustrating because we cannot read it. I got bifocals for my 44th birthday, and I cannot read that. But one of the aspects or components that they look at is religion and spirituality. I forgot to mention that while this study is validated, it is at the highest level of research, it is actually being led by born-again Christians, people who love Jesus. And so it's really interesting that they're doing this study so that it becomes validated and scientifically accepted. Clearly, I am not a science person, but you know what I mean. But it is actually being led by people who love Jesus. And but to be a valid study, they're looking at religion across the spectrum, not just Christianity. But what they're finding is that individuals who participate in a community of faith, that they are lower instances and lower levels of depression. And they have higher levels of flourishing. And so what it is, it's validating the role of the church and faith communities to health sciences and governments and funders and researchers. And so I think this is going to have such a huge ripple effect on how people and how different sectors of government and healthcare see the church and see the role of the church. So I just wanted to point that study out, and it's probably coming to a documentary near you at some point in time. Okay. So what is mental illness? What is mental health struggles? We often think of it as either someone has a mental illness or someone does not have a mental illness, but it is so much richer than that. It is this quadrant of you can have a mental illness, a diagnosis of mental illness, but and just be floundering. You can be languishing and struggling, but you also can have a diagnosis of a mental illness and your life be completely flourishing. It does not define how your well-being is in that moment. And you cannot have a diagnosis of a mental illness and be languishing and struggling and suffering and just, on the struggle bus, and then you can be flourishing. There's this whole ebb and flow. And so we need to break out those barriers where it's us and them. You have a mental health condition or you don't have a mental condition. That is no longer really the boxes that people are considering. I do want to validate that individuals who have a diagnosis of a serious mental illness that is debilitating in their life, that is a struggle. I am not minimizing the suffering that they're experiencing, but I also don't want to create an us and them category. I think we all suffer and we all struggle. And so when you're looking at your congregations or those who are walking in the door, you can assume that at any point in time, anyone is suffering and struggling with their mental health. It does not require. Oftentimes in churches, we think care is casseroles or a prayer team, and there's so much more to care ministry. Care ministry just doesn't include casseroles. I think if I had a bumper sticker, this would be care doesn't equal casseroles. For Hope Made Strong, this is the definition of care that we work with and we train from. I recognize that every congregation, every community, every church has a different culture, has a different approach, different calling or vision on the house that they are serving in or that they're leading. But this is this is what we approach as. That care ministry is the support and care provided by the church with the intention, this is the important part, it has intention of strengthening belonging, purpose, and hope with the goal of equipping the whole person to flourish. So to me, this is what care ministry is. It's just not casseroles. It's just not a prayer team. It's just not premarital counseling. It is so much more. It is it's in the intention of equipping someone with belonging, purpose, and hope. So I want to pause on those things and just really define those. When you think of care ministry in a church or supporting people who are struggling, people often want to have an easy, give me the 4 steps or 5 steps, or even better, maybe 3 steps to be able to check off that box and say, yes, we are caring for people. We are supporting people. But it doesn't happen that way because if you have a church who is in a rural community like we are today and where my church is back home, the needs are going to look very different or is going to look different than maybe an urban church, or maybe a church here in Clarion County is going to look different in Florida or California or Canada, Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal. And so there's no secret formula or curriculum or small group or program that is going to develop, is going to be able to say, check off that box. Care isn't a program, care is a culture. And so we want to foster that culture in our churches by being intentional with these 3 things. The 3 things are belonging, purpose, and hope. Belonging being that we are creating safe spaces where people feel welcomed, they feel safe, they feel connected, they feel like they belong. And when we do that, I don't know if you guys have ushers or you have greeters or parking people, I don't know, cafe. Churches have all different stations. But when you see someone, it's like, hey, Tina, I'm so glad you're here. Jim, it's great to have you. How was your, baseball game this week? I don't know. You're relational with people, and you're creating safe spaces where people are able to connect. A purpose is the extension of dignity, that you recognize that every single person is created on purpose for a purpose, that they are all children of God and they have dignity. It's not about their last name or how much they tithe or how much they serve or their income level or their education level. It really is about they are a human being, a child of God, and that they belong here and that they have a purpose and they have gifts and callings on their life that we want to help them discover and bring out and bring to life. And then hope. Man, hope. We have the hope of Jesus. We have the hope of the gospel. But many times when people are struggling, they don't have the strength or the capacity to hold hope. They feel hopeless. They feel like they're overwhelmed. They don't see the future, that God has a great plan for them, and you can do this, and all of those things. So sometimes we become the caretakers of hope for them, and that is such an honor to be in that position of a caretaker of hope, walking alongside them, a person, until they're able to take up and have hope for themselves. And so hope often comes through stories and testimony and lived experience. And I think the power of lived experience, the power of peer support, is an underutilized gift that the church has to our community. And so when we are able to share stories of suffering and stories of overcome, when we feel comfortable and confident and we have the capacity to walk with people through seasons of lament and suffering and grief, that is such a hope-inspired time. And so while the church can't be all things to all people, we can't have a trauma center and pay people's rent and their, the utility bills and pastoral care and children. We can't be experts at all things. What we can be experts at is belonging, purpose, and hope. And these are unique and not unique gifts. They are unique needs in us, in every human being. These are core needs that we all have. And if the church can help support that and provide that, it is a tremendous impact to a person's well-being and their structure. So that is what we need to do, or that is what the role is offering belonging, purpose, and hope. And we do this with three different people. These are who is providing this. We have peers, pastors, and professionals. I mentioned peers are people with lived experience, stories, been through hell and back, and have the wisdom to share with others. And there's one of my favorite roles in the organization that I worked at was leading the peer support team, training and developing peers. And bringing them into clinical spaces, because research is showing that when you partner peer support with treatment planning, and clinical support, the recovery rates are absolutely exceptional. And so peers are what we have in churches in spades. We have whole pews and rows full of people with wisdom to share, whether they struggled with divorce, whether they struggled with a diagnosis, whether they struggled with grief, whether they struggled with raising teenage girls. If anyone in here, please help me. I have a 13 and a 15-year-old. There's lots of wisdom that we don't often tap into. We look for the shiny people to help with volunteering, supporting, but it's people who with, the scars and of the lived experience that actually are exceptional helpers and mentors. Pastors, and I don't mean the pastor. Can all the pastors say amen to that? We're not saying the pastors are the people to help. We're saying pastoral. Those with more in-depth knowledge and training. If you call yourself a pastor, my expectation is that you have more in-depth training on biblical knowledge, more than I do. You mean more than homeschool Bible school. And really, pastors see people often for short periods of time, maybe 3 appointments for a very specific need, where peers connect with people over a lifetime. And then we have professionals, clinicians. And so these are the 3 roles that are available to churches. Now, most churches don't have clinicians within the setting of the church body. They don't have a clinician on staff. I actually, when people say, hey, we're thinking of opening a counseling center in our church, I always caution people that there's a lot of issues around ethics and dual relationships and boundaries that can get really murky. And I caution people on that very much. If you have that, I'm sure you're doing it wonderfully in your church. I have no idea who's here. But, most churches engage in support around referrals. And maybe professionals or clinicians provide training and workshops and equipping. And so there's lots of symbiotic relationships there. So those are the what. This is the who supports, or the who engages. What's my time? I have no idea. How much longer do I have? Just so I can pace myself. Till I'm done? No. I need Dave. You want to hear Dave, believe me. He's pretty fantastic. Okay. So model of care. I'm going to walk through the model of care. And this is when we think of how churches can care for people. Am I good, Trent? Oh, fantastic. Well, this is we're almost done. I think the magic is when you have conversations. So I do not want to creep into the conversation time. That's when really the magic happens. You don't want to listen to me all day. It's each other that has the shared wisdom. Okay, so let's talk about model of care. So when I'm training churches on how to build strategies and systems of care ministry, there is both the organic and the organized piece of care. There's the people who are like, care needs to be organic. We need to have relationships, and we don't want to make it too cold and clinical and all of these things. And then you have the organized, which is like we want to have accountability. We want to know how many meals were served. We want to know how many people were prayed for. And I really think it needs to be a blend of both. We're going to talk about the model of care, which is more of the organic side of care. The organized, if you want to talk about that, we can talk about that all day. That's a soapbox that I'd love to get on, but we'll not get on that today. The model of care is how every human being engages in care. How we, when we're suffering, when we feel pain, stress, overwhelm, all those things, how we tend to our own needs. Or how we get our needs met, I should say. And I'm going to walk through what those are. Obviously, there are these 5. There's no secret there. It's on the slide. But then I want to discuss how maybe the church can step into this role. So the top of the line is self-care. And it's at the top because we all have access. It's very accessible and we are all able to do it. And we all have access, do it. We all tend to our own well-being. When you're stressed and overwhelmed, you listen to music, you take your dog on a walk, you read a book, you have a bath, you play golf, you watch your favorite show. I don't know what you do for self-care, but whatever you do for self-care that is what you have, you tend to your own. And we all are able to do that. But I'm actually curious, am I allowed to ask questions and get audience engagement? I hope so. So I'm just prepping yourself. I hope so. I'm just going to do it because no one's stopping me yet. So self-care, what are some areas that the church can engage in individuals with self-care? I would actually love to hear your thoughts. Just shout it out. How can the church help people engage in self-care? Or they already do, I promise you. Fantastic. They offer scriptures. So offering scriptures to read, another Christianese term is meditation. So you're meditating on the word. So you're finding inspirational scriptures and biblical, psalms or whatever they are. That's a form of meditation. Meditation is a benign word. It's not connected to it's benign. Meditation is a verb. It's an action. And then so as the church, we are encouraging people to meditate on the word. And meditation is a huge, huge self-care practice. What's another self-care practice that the church encourages? What's that? A day of rest, exactly. Sabbath in the Christianese language, rest and self-care in the common vernacular of the general population, Gen Pop. So yes, we encourage rest and we teach rest. Absolutely. God commanded us to rest. Another one is prayer. Prayer is another self-care practice. Another one is forgiveness, because a lot of times forgiveness is a self-care practice, actually doesn't involve anybody else. Another one is, what is another one? Worship, seeing beauty and art, music. Right, so the church does have a very strong role to play in equipping people with the tools to be able to tend to their own well-being through self-care practices. What about community? I think the church is the definition of community. Community, not going and saying, hey, I want to talk about my problems, but being part of something. We talked about that in belonging, just showing up and someone being there. Individuals who are not part of churches have that maybe in book club or their golfing buddies or their actual family or maybe their high school friends. They get together. You're part of something. You don't necessarily share, divulge all of your problems and seek out support, but just being a part of something is a huge support. And this is where the church, gold stars for all of us. We do this great. We are a community of people where when people come in, we try. That's the belonging. I'm sure there's always room for improvement, but I think this is the area that we do in exceptional ways. What is an example that the church offers in peer support? Small groups, absolutely. Small groups. And small groups can both be community, because you're just going there to be a part of something. And then small groups can also be peer, where you're intentionally going up and saying, hey, can I stay afterwards? Can I chat with you? Because then you're accessing that peer support. Is there another? Does anyone have marriage mentors in their church? That can be a common one, where you have people who've been married successfully or unsuccessfully and then successfully, so they know both sides of it. And then and they're mentoring younger people, so that is an option. Or maybe there's finance mentors or youth mentors. It's really being intentional about sharing wisdom from lived experience. And this is the part in the church that I think is underutilized the most. And as you can tell, the triangle is getting narrower and narrower because the accessibility, how often we need to access that resource is getting less frequent, but also the availability is becoming less, getting fewer. Experts, in the church world, experts would be pastoral care, but in general population, it could be maybe a nutritional coach or a finance support person, or really any level like a coach, someone who has additional experience or training or knowledge, who are not clinicians or licensed professionals, who are providing wisdom and sharing. So in the church offers spiritual guidance, whether that's through elders or deacons or pastors. And then professionals. These are the clinicals, and it bothers me so much that this cannot fit inside the triangle and be neat and tidy. I'm just acknowledging and validating everyone else's tension that is seeing that as well. But yeah, the church offers, like I said, referrals, partnerships, and collaborations with clinicians. And so as human beings, we flow through the model of care to have our needs met. And this is how the church can show up in every single area. Absolutely every single area. So the role of the church isn't isolated to community, isn't isolated to prayer and casseroles, but the church can show up in every area. I want to end off with a story of the Good Samaritan. This is a painting by Rembrandt of the Good Samaritan. This is a common story that I think many, if not most of us, know, and we often want to we want to gravitate towards the hero of the story. We want to be the Good Samaritan. So the Good Samaritan, there was a person on the side of the road. They got beat up, they got robbed, they got tossed off, and they're at the side of the road and they're struggling. And their religious leaders have walked past them, seeing them and ignoring them and keeping on their way, or stepping over them or around them and just saying, I don't have time for that. I have a large crowd that's waiting for me. I have important things to do. That's not in my budget. Those are not my people that I serve. They're not from my community. And the Samaritan, which is a description of like where the person was from Samaria, stopped and helped this individual who is wounded and hurting on the side of the road. Picked him up, put him on his donkey, brought him to the inn, paid for and ensured that this person was cared for. And we often think, okay, the church's role is to be the good Samaritan. And I would challenge that, honestly. I think as human beings, as individuals, we are to be the good Samaritan. But I think the church's role in this story is the person that's talked about least, is that the church is the innkeeper. The church is the place where we as Samaritans can bring people who are wounded, who are hurting, who are suffering, who are struggling. And the church can be a safe place where they tend to the wounds, they care for the people, they ensure that people are safe and cared for and supported until they are reached health. I just want to encourage everyone as we end this talk and move into a time of discussion in our tables, want to validate that you are doing really great work in your churches. You are encouraging belonging and purpose and hope. You are walking with people at every stage of their needs through how people access care. And we are to be innkeepers in our church and for supporting individuals who are struggling with their mental health. So I think we're going to be moving into discussions for our table. I don't know what to do next. What do I do next?
Talk to you later.
Oh, we'll see you later, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.